Netanyahu's idea is make the Middle East in Israel's image, overthrow every government that opposes Israel. He's had a friend in that, and that is the CIA and the United States government. So this war in Syria did not come from Assad's repression. It did not come from Assad's dictatorship. This war came from a presidential order by Obama to overthrow Assad, starting in the spring of 2011.
Oh my God.
Where my fear with the whole Epstein thing and Epstein's connection to Mossad and possibly Israeli intelligence, my fear was based on Israel running America. But what if it's American powers that are saying, nah, we need Israel over there to do our dirty work? But I never looked at it like that. Yeah, you may have said it, but you didn't break it down. You feel me? You got to break it down so people can digest the information. She ain't say it like that. But all right, let's move on with this video. I want y'all to take a look at this. Jeffrey Sachs had some interesting things to say.
And where this entire war came from. It did not come from Bashar al-Assad. It came from Washington. There was a decision in 2011 to overthrow Assad. Actually, that came.
You see that power flex? She just came in the background talking about, yeah, I shouldn't have said that on this show. Yeah, you shouldn't have. I'm just joking. No, you should have. What you mean? This is an open show. This is an open mic. A safe place for everybody to express exactly what their feelings are, to call out. Yeah, you probably did mention it to me before, but with new information, I may have just received it differently. So that's what happens. That's what happens, and we all entitled to that.
Not come from Bashar al-Assad. It came from Washington. There was a decision in 2011 to overthrow Assad. Actually, that came from Jerusalem. This has been a desire of the Israeli government that stretches back more than 25 years. Netanyahu's idea is make the Middle East in Israel's image, overthrow every government that opposes Israel. He's had a friend in that, and that is the CIA and the United States government. So this war in Syria did not come from Assad's repression. It did not come from Assad's dictatorship. This war came from a presidential order by Obama to overthrow Assad, starting in the spring of 2011.
First and foremost, want to give a huge shout out to everybody that continues to tap in with us, like and subscribe and join our community. If you haven't already, please make sure that you do. We look forward to engaging in some dope convo with you that can help us all elevate. So like, subscribe, and maybe even share the video if you're feeling real generous. On that note, we'll let you get back to the video. See you soon.
We have a name for this program. It was Operation Timber Sycamore. The United States, together with other countries in this region, trained fighters, especially jihadists, including the ones that just took power, to overthrow the regime. This created chaos. 600,000 dead in Syria in a war that has gone on for 14 years. The outcome of this war is what the CIA wanted back in 2011, which is that a jihad group would take power in Syria after being armed by the United States. The reason I want...
That seems to be a reoccurring theme with, I believe that it came out that Netanyahu was indirectly or directly or wanting to finance Hamas to create destabilization. I believe that when we went over the manifesto from Osama bin Laden, that some of the bin Ladens had relationships with people in the United States. It seems to be a reoccurring thing where a lot of these quote unquote terrorist groups, where if you trace back their history, it seemed like they got funding from a lot of the people that are 10 years later calling them terrorists and looking for reasons to kill them. This happened with Saddam, I believe. Let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Being armed by the United States. The reason I want to be clear about this is that we will not have peace in this region until we have public diplomacy that is based on real diplomacy, not on CIA operations. And we will not have peace until Israel stops its militarization of the entire Middle East. Because the Syrian war is just one of 6 wars that Israel has promoted, including in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Somalia, and Sudan. We had the list, actually, from Wesley Clark back in 2001, when he was handed a paper in the Pentagon that the goal was 7 wars in 5 years. The only war that hasn't taken place yet, to Netanyahu's great consternation, is the US war with Iran, which Israel is still trying to instigate to this very day. So the Syrian war is part of a regional tragedy. We have tragedy in Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Sudan, South Sudan, and Libya that I put at the hands of the United States government and its ally Israel, because none of these wars had to happen. These were all wars of choice. They were all wars that came from the idea of regime change operations, that the United States would determine which regimes operate in which countries. We'll never have peace in this region if outside imperial powers like the United States are dictating the terms to this region. The only way to have peace in this region is if this region is determining its own future, not outside powers. And Israel could never do these wars on its own. These are American wars. America provides the financing, it provides the military backup, it provides the naval support, it provides the intelligence operations, it provides the munitions. Israel couldn't fight for one day without the United States backing. Israel could not be committing a genocide in Gaza without the United States' full operational complicity. I don't mean political complicity, I mean direct, daily operational complicity. This has to end. This region has been divided for 100 years, first by the British Empire and then by the American Empire. And this is going on until today. We have a genocide going on right next door. Till today, till this morning. People being wantonly killed, brazenly killed, because the United States is providing the means for this.
And it just makes you wonder when you hear that, okay, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they never asked for a ceasefire. Obviously, Trump seems like he's getting bullied by whoever is trying to push for more war in that region. When the Democrats and Republicans agree on certain things, it's almost like that's what worries you. You saw that the Democrats didn't want to unveil the Epstein files. Trump and the Republicans were calling out for it to be, hey, we got to have transparency on this. But then Trump now, he's calling it a hoax, calling it. It's like when y'all tend to agree on stuff, even though that should be what we look at and say, oh, you know, this is good. There's some common ground. But knowing how despicable and how slimy our politicians are, I believe it should make us all wonder and perhaps be not necessarily fearful, but a bit more observant and look into it a bit more when now you see both of these parties moving the same way for something. And this whole destabilization, and when we're looking at when he mentioned the 7 wars in this area, and now they want Iran, and they're always trying to have a regime change. America getting involved in international affairs, countries that have nothing to do with you, doing to other countries what if some country did to us, it would be considered an act of war. It's like, isn't this what would happen? Like, we see this all the time in real life, on TV shows, where you have somebody who's, let's say they're a big time drug dealer. They're trying to sell drugs in the neighborhood. What do? They come in and they try to get the groups that are already there to fight against each other, so that way they weaken each other and create a need for themselves, right? To create an opportunity for whichever group wants to align themselves now with them. Now that's their way in to now where they can bully their way into taking over the entire operation. Is this exactly what's happening in the Middle East? And I was going to say, like, figuratively, metaphorically, what's happening. But then when you hear about what the Afghan war, I believe that was the Afghan war. What was it, Maya, the one that was supposedly over the poppy seeds? Did American troops protect poppy fields in Afghan war? Wasn't there, like, I know Candace Owens was talking about how the Afghan war was over the poppy seeds. Yeah, so in Afghanistan. So let me show y'all something real quick.
Well, they made farmers plant kill their crop and plant poppy instead.
So they made farmers kill their crop. Okay.
They told farmers, if you don't stop planting, say, corn or whatever you're planting, and you plant poppy seed instead, so leave you alone.
All right. So take a look at the screen. It says, yes, American troops did protect poppy fields at times during the war in Afghanistan, particularly in the early years after the U.S. invasion in 2001. However, this issue is complex and layered with strategic, political, and ethical dimensions. Of course it's complex and layered, right? It can't just be about protecting just poppy fields, especially when we got this opioid crisis in America. Afghanistan has long been the world's leading producer of opium derived from the poppy plant. I was today years old when I found that out. I was today years old when I found out that Afghanistan has long been the world's leading producer of opium. I did not know that. The opium trade became a major source of revenue for local warlords and the Taliban, helping to fund insurgency and corruption. I thought it was just over oil. Wow. In certain regions, especially Helmand province, U.S. and NATO forces were ordered not to destroy poppy fields early on in the war. The rationale: destroying crops would alienate local farmers and push them toward the Taliban. The priority was winning the hearts and minds over aggression, eradicating. Look at that. Look at the rationale. Destroying crops would alienate local farmers and push them toward the Taliban. So that's your rationale. But then you think that by destroying all of Palestine, that you're not radicalizing those people. No, you are protecting your poppy seeds. Look at them try to act as if this is wild. Hey, we don't want to alienate the local farmers, so let's not destroy their poppy fields. And we probably really bought into that. This is wild. When Candace Owens said this, I kind of didn't even look into it. I was like, oh, maybe it's true. Maybe she's exaggerating a little bit. This is wild. America, we got some explaining to do, man. We got some explaining to do. There's a reason why other countries can't stand us. There's a reason why. There is a reason why. America, we got our hands in a whole bunch of stuff. We try to act as if we got the utmost standards, but in all actuality, we're just trying to control. It sounds like, based on my takeaway reading this, sounds like we're always just trying to control, whether it's drugs, whether it's oil, whether it's whatever else, trafficking of sorts. It seems as if not that we have a problem with the drugs or the trafficking. It seems like we just want to control it and make sure that we're the ones making money off of it. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit. Let's get back to the video, though. Y'all tell me if I'm looking at it a little wrong, if I'm looking at it wrong. Y'all tell me. Unc said, oh, so your eyes are open now. I'm just learning this stuff. Do you know how much pharmaceutical drugs are made with that heroin? I had no idea that Afghanistan was the largest producer of opium. Was anybody else? Hold on. Did everybody else notice? Or is anybody else just as surprised as me? Because if I knew this, then I would have had my eyes open to what's going on. Like, I already thought it was about them just controlling the region, but now we know exactly why. Think about it. The healthcare industries, these drug producers that sell our people drugs, that control our mainstream media, some of the most powerful people in the world and biggest influencers in America, they need what's being produced in Afghanistan. And America conveniently decides to go to war with. Damn. Ant said it right here. So the Middle East has oil and poppy. Of course they need freedom. Damn. Wow. Let's keep going. Wow. Steve said, absolutely. I know some folks that were protecting those big red poppy fields during the war. This is crazy. Do y'all, let me ask y'all this. Do we think that most Americans are aware of this? Because I don't think that the average American is aware of this. Or maybe I'm just in my own bubble. I don't know. This is a perfect example of what I said the other day when Candace Owens, which I wanted to review today, which it looks like we may not have time. When I said that Candace Owens was in a conversation with Nick Fuentes and had no idea that Moors were in control of Europe for like 700 years. But when Nick Fuentes said, yeah, what have black people, black Africans, they've never contributed to anything. They have never had their own written language, all these different things. And Candace Owens just kind of sat there because she was so blind in that area. There's a lot of blind spots. There are a lot of blind spots. I never saw this. And speaking on those blind spots, real quick, something that I didn't mention when I was talking about Malcolm X. Another thing that Malcolm X brought about is there's a written, it wasn't a speech. There was a paper that he wrote called Zionist Logic. And I think it may make sense for a lot of people to go back and listen to, or go back and read that, because a lot of the logic was based on the same things that we talk about right now on this show. He was saying, and he even mentioned the Moors. He said, should the Moors go back to Spain? Or he was drawing that connection. I don't want to say word for word that he was encouraging that, but he was saying that the same logic that Jewish people use, well, the Zionists use to establish Israel, could be the same logic that Moors used to go back and take the Iberian Peninsula, I believe he mentioned, and go conquer Spain. So it was just more like, damn. Wow. Wow. Unc said, this is funny because this is true. What do they call a person that speaks 2 languages? Okay. What do they call a person that speaks 3 languages? Glad you know that now. What do they call a person that speaks 1 language? American. That's a fact. Because I'm going to tell you how limited our education is. I did not learn about any European history growing up in high school. The most education that I had on history was at private school. When I went to private school in 8th grade, and then I went to private school for a year after I graduated high school. I did a postgraduate year. That was the most extensive history courses that I had. Other than that, in public school, and it's such a shame. History should be history should be longer than a lot of these other classes, in my opinion. At least right now, I really think that based on how they're offering math and science and English and that stuff now. History should be given like twice as much time as those classes. But the fact that we have so many boring history professors, and I don't know whether they think that they're handicapped based on the curriculum and stuff, but this should be so engaging. I remember when I was substitute teaching at the Renaissance School, Rand at Renaissance, whatever they're calling it, a school in Montclair where I grew up, and this professor, Professor Jackson, and this was the most engaged I'd ever been in a history class, where he made one point, and this is what maybe sparked, or it didn't spark it because I was already on this type of time, but this is what he just said. He said he looked at the flag and the Pledge of Allegiance, and he said, would Jewish people ever pledge allegiance to a German flag or a Nazi flag? And everybody said no. And he said, so why do Black Americans, and he's talking to a class of like, I think this was 8th graders. Yeah, this is a class of 8th graders. He said, so why do Black Americans pledge allegiance to that? And he pointed at the American flag. And I was just sitting there like, yo, like, bro. Like, and I was just so shocked that he even said that. But these are the engaging conversations, whether you believe it or not, whatever your stance is, this is how history should be taught. But history is neglected in American public school system. So parents, do a better job. Communities, we got to do a better job of educating, because we get misled in so many different ways just by not understanding what has already happened. We get misled by not understanding people's intent just by us not knowing the history of certain things. So let's keep going. Let's keep going with this video. I think we're almost done with it.
So this is what's happening in Syria. Is the U.S. on the fence? Hardly. It's the major actor. I know, by the way, firsthand that in 2012, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon appointed former Secretary General Kofi Annan as special envoy to reach a peace in Syria. I loved Kofi Annan. I love Ban Ki-moon. I worked for both of them. Kofi Annan arranged a peace in 2012. He arranged a peace in Syria. You know why it didn't happen? Because all the parties agreed to peace except one. Literally one. That was the United States of America. The United States of America said there will be no peace unless Bashar al-Assad goes the first day. The other parties said, no, you can't just determine that. Maybe there'll be a process. Maybe there'll be elections agreed. Maybe there'll be a 2-year process, a 3-year process. The United States said, no, Assad must go the first day of any agreement or we block it. And so Kofi Annan stepped down from his position after having negotiated a peace arrangement, and we have had 500,000 people dead since then. We should not allow this kind of criminality to be normal. This region has been at war nonstop for 30 years, actually, I would say for at least 57 years since the Six-Day War, because there has been no honest accounting of international law, no honest diplomacy. It's been militarization all the way through. And we could have peace immediately in this region. All that is required, in my view, is the United States change its veto of Palestine as the 194th UN member state, because on that basis, all the region would normalize relations and the wars all across this region would stop. But Israel has had control over US policy, and it says no. It wants greater Israel. It wants Israel in Syria. It wants Israel in Lebanon. It wants Israel in the West Bank. It wants Israel in East Jerusalem. It wants Israel in Gaza. And until that stops, we're not going to have peace. So is the U.S. on the fence? Of course not. It's the major protagonist of this whole war and has been for the last 14 years.
Man. Man. Dang, I didn't get to a whole bunch of stuff. Let's finish off with, man, it's hard to move on to anything else after that. But let me see. All right, so some of the, let me watch this transition real quick. All right, so how do they radicalize people? How do they distract us? How do they get us to focus on one thing or another? Is to see America and to see politics as two different parties. If they see us as the Democrats versus Republicans, that's the only fight that we'll engage in, because that's the one that we feel like we're most closely associated with. Meanwhile, we won't pay attention to what's going on outside in different areas. So, and let me make sure that I'm gonna bring up an example of some of the things that may be enforced as distractions and how we get caught up in fighting that battle rather than looking at this battle of humanity, where we focus so much on America, where we think that the world is literally revolving around America, where we ignore the impact and the evil that we are spreading to other areas. So let me catch up with Ant's comments real quick, because Ant said, when you start to realize that America is an idol built to worship money, things start to make more sense. I agree. I agree, bro. I agree. Let me show y'all this clip very quickly. I want to show y'all this clip. Joy Reid, and hold on. Let me show y'all this clip. And I kind of want to. Okay. Let me do this. Which one do I want to go with? This whole division. Let me show y'all this video first. This division is stoked in a bunch of different ways. Before I show you what's a part of the distraction, let me stick on what Unc is talking about as far as the divide and conquer that I believe is happening. And then I'll have the video to show y'all with what is, in my opinion, being seen as some of the things that are put in front of us to distract us rather than focusing on what the main goal should be. All right, let's keep going. It's Dak. Just want to thank you for checking out our video and visiting the OG Network. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure that you give us a like. And if you're looking to join a community of inspired individuals striving for purposeful abundance, subscribe. And if you're feeling real generous, share the video with some friends and family. All right, I'll see y'all soon.